welcome back to the channel. This is Mike from Rescue Bees, and we're going to install a couple of nukes today, so I'll let Mike explain what we're going to do.
There you go. Ta-da. All right. Hi, everybody. Yep, Mike Emmer here. We're just going to take two nucleus colonies, right? They call them nukes for short. It's basically a laying queen that's been verified, accepted. She's got eggs and all kinds of different larvae. And we customize these nukes a little bit to go into these flow hives just to make them build up faster and stronger. Instead of 3 frames of brood, these have 4. So 4 brood frames and a resource frame. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them in the exact order that they're in the nuke box, just to avoid disrupting the bees too much. And we'll do that in a very gentle way, if at all possible. And so we'll start from the outside resource frames and work our way in. And again, we'll put them right in the order that they're going to go into these flow hives. Just to show you inside the flow hive, this is kind of a nice inner cover. It has a little port that you can put a feeder over, that type of thing. But those are 5-frame nukes, so we want to center that up a little bit. And I'm going to put those 5 frames right in the middle. All right, if we're ready, we'll go ahead and open it. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right,
I'm going to need to get another board from inside.
Gotcha. No worries.
I thought this was 6 frames.
Get her opened up. Okay, these are Pro Nuke boxes. They're pretty cool. They actually have a place that you can cut the bottom off of these, and you can use pop bottles. Reuse, recycle, right? You use pop bottles as feeders, and the bees can come up and eat. It gives you instructions on the inside of the lid, and you can also put them in a way that's vented or not. So you have a lot of choices in how you configure these. They also have frame rest holders, which is helpful when you're moving these around, that are on here. And these will be a little more perturbed sometimes than a lot of bees, because we just got them out of the back of the truck, right? So they're a little bit irritable, not too bad. And then when we operate, when we want to use the frames, we want to break them loose gently. Try to keep as many bees on the frames as possible. This is what we call a resource frame. You can see it's shiny in there. There's a lot of nectar. Now in this case, since it's nice and cool, good for us, not so good for the bees, we'll be checkerboarding this when it gets a little bit warmer. What I mean by that, as I get the rest of these in here, I'll demonstrate further. But we're going to want to put empty frames sandwiched between the drawn frames so they draw it out. A lot of people with these flow hives like to let the bees build just comb without a foundation. The frames I'm putting in have foundations, so if you want them to draw it straight, one way you can help them do that is by sandwiching it between other drawn frames. So more on that in just a minute here. Let's flip to the other side. I'll show you a couple things while we're looking at them. We want to lift up and out as gently as we can, because we know there's a queen in here. We may not see her today, but we know she's here. We've verified her presence. And I'll show you some of the things we look for instead of a queen, because it can be a challenge finding those queens sometimes. So this is an outside brood frame, and you can see all different types of brood. You've got the capped brood, which is ready to hatch, and it gets smaller as you move away from that center area. It's actually a pretty good pattern that's being laid here. You can see the little larvae that look like macaroni noodles in there. And as you go out further, it gets smaller and smaller till it looks like a little blob of white. We call that milk brood. And then very, very small, you can see eggs in the center of each one. It's about the width of a human hair. It stands up straight, and it's not much taller than a grain of salt. So if you could imagine a very, very small grain of rice, that's really what we're looking at here. Now this frame will have to be replaced. I'll show you guys this. Sometimes in transportation, depending on, because we don't always, these frames get mixed around quite a bit. Sometimes in transportation they'll pop loose. And this type of staple is actually the wrong kind of staple to use with this. So I'm not sure where this frame came from. It's an older frame. But that's what they like. They love to lay their eggs in older brood. So I'd rather repair, for instance, this frame and reuse it than start with one that's brand new. Okay, so let's slide this one in. Even though it is a brood frame, it also has resources. So we have pollen as well as nectar in this frame. And we're going to go ahead and put in on the outside. You'll notice the bees clustering to keep the brood warm. We're going to go ahead and let them keep doing that. And let's see, there's a little more resource on this side. So we're going to put the resource side out just for insulation. You don't need a lot of insulation right now, but that gives you an idea. Sometimes we'll take the entire center of this and pull it out and put it in all together to keep from disrupting them, to keep more bees on the frame. But we don't always do that, and for educational purposes, in just handling, sometimes we'll go ahead and do it a frame at a time. We'll continue just kind of moving slowly through this one.
What keeps them from fusing the frames together with comb and wax?
So I'll show you where they've been doing exactly that. This is propolis, and that's a mixture of sap and wax and sugar and honey. So that propolis is what they use to glue it together. And when they get separated for a little while, the bees will put that on there, and then you have to scrape it off in order for the frames to meet evenly. Okay. A couple other interesting things we can look at on this one. They're a little crowded, and they're starting to build queen cells here. And these could be practice cells, which they usually are. They do this all the time. We call them queen cups. But we'll just open this one up to see. And see, they kind of want to make a new queen. They're getting crowded. You can see a queen larva in there. We don't want them to create a new queen, so we're just going to dig that out. Okay? We want the queen that's already laying in there, and she's doing a good job. That's a nice pattern. But these boxes, these nukes are pretty strong.
Now they feel they're crowded because they're in that little box?
Correct. They've been in there for about 3 weeks, making sure that they're laying and growing at the appropriate rate. So they're thinking it's time to get out of there, and we're thinking we're just going to give them a new, happier home.
Gotcha.
Okay. See how they're piled up on there? That's just to keep the brood warm. And sometimes we'll just use a brush, maybe a little bit of smoke, to spread them out a little bit. But I just want to take a look. I mean, since we're doing the video, why not spend a little extra time taking a look for any other, swarm cells or emergency cells starting. We want to make sure that there's eggs. We know that there are. If we see eggs, we know that queen's been on there for...
Is that a larva down there?
Yeah, that little white.
Yeah.
That it almost looks like a maggot or a macaroni noodle.
Right.
That's a larva. And then the eggs, if you follow it out further, are even smaller. It's a little harder to see in this frame than it was the last one.
Right.
But when you see those eggs, there's a queen in there. That's another reason I love doing these deliveries and installs, because I can validate, I can verify.
Is that another queen cell that's over?
Let's check. See, they'll kind of pile up on each other.
Yeah.
Okay. But I like to check them this way. That way I can be sure that what we're delivering makes it into the hive, and we don't roll a queen accidentally.
Is there a way you can show me what the difference is between a drone and a worker?
There is. Let's see if we have some drone brood over here, the side that we kind of cleared off. There's not a lot of drone brood here. Look.
Now I've done a lot of research, and what I've heard was that drones, 1, they don't sting, and 2, they got bigger eyes.
Yeah, and 3, they actually consume about 8 times as much honey. So a lot of commercial guys for production don't want drone brood at all, and they'll scrape it out. Now I differ from that opinion slightly, because when you talk about genetics of bees and their behavior,
right,
you've got to remember that a queen, even though she's responsible for about half the genetics and attitude of the bees, she's going to mate with between 15 and 50 drones. So there's a lot of genetic material that comes from drones as well.
Right.
So you don't want to forget about the drones.
At
the same time, yeah, they'll get the boot when it starts to get cold. They'll get kicked out of the hive so that you're not, so they're not eating all the winter supplies.
Right.
So the drones a lot of times get mistaken for a queen to somebody who's a little bit new to beekeeping, but there's not a ton of drones in these examples. When you see a big fat one,
winter, right?
yeah, they'll kick them out during the winter. So, all right, we'll keep looking, and if we see some more interesting things, I'll let you kind of zoom in on them.
What I think is neat is I'm barehanded right now because I'm using my GoPro, and I've already had 3 or 4 bees land on my hand and on the microphone, and they are really gentle. They don't don't sting. They're just buzzing around.
Yep, they'll get you sometimes if they're riled up enough, and I'm glad you're talking about that, because a lot of people refer to aggressive traits in bees,
Right.
and I think that's the wrong word. We need to refer to it as defensiveness, right? Because we're really disrupting them by doing what we're doing right here. You know, we're going into their home and moving things around, and we're threatening their babies. Right?
It's empty.
All right, is there anything in the bottom?
No, it doesn't look like.
Okay, so that is a dry swarm cell.
Okay.
And when they're on the bottom like this, they're for sure swarm cells versus an emergency cell.
Okay.
But that one's dry, we don't have to worry about it. And the difference between an emergency cell and a swarm cell is the difference between procreation. Like we have babies, bees have swarms. Right? So a swarm cell's at the bottom, and they usually create that when they're running out of room. They have a big, strong, healthy hive, and they want to, make a new hive. Right? If it's an emergency cell, then they're almost exclusively up in the top to middle areas, kind of where that other one was.
Right.
But you'd see a lot of them, and they take the youngest larva they can take, and it's an emergency cell because their queen has died, usually.
I see.
Or she's injured badly. For whatever reason, they feel like we have to replace the queen, and the queen hasn't had time to make a new, they haven't had time to make a brand new one from a normal, healthy start. Rather, it's just an emergency response. Okay?
Gotcha.
All right. Now, queens do like to hide from time to time. She could be in that big pile of bees right there. We don't know for sure. We can try and spread them out a little, but when I breathe on them, it's almost a predatory response for them. So I don't want to get them too riled up with the CO2. There's your queen right there.
Right.
See if you can find her there. We like to play a game as beekeepers when we're training new beekeepers. I'm going to set it down one end of it here.
Okay.
She's right in the middle.
Right here?
Right there.
Oh, no kidding. There you go.
Yeah, see that nice big kind of abdomen area?
Right.
That's the queen.
And they're all around her.
Uh-huh. A lot of people think the queen runs everything, and she's responsible for a lot, but she's really more a servant to the rest of the colony. They kind of tell her what to do. So they'll find, having more room in here is a way to stimulate additional growth. They'll draw out new wax and new comb. It's really nice, pretty white comb when they do that. But we need the weather to warm up, right? And they'll draw wax when there's plenty of resources. And right now it's a little too cool, and we need some, 70, 80, 90 degree days so that the nectar can start popping out of the, flowers and everything like that.
How long, with those empty boards, how long will it take them to draw comb for those boards?
When there's a good flow on, they could draw out 10 frames in a week.
Wow.
A strong colony could, Colony like this, you might look at them one week and just start to see a tiny, crest, if you will, of white comb. And then the flow kicks in. You come back a week later and you're like, good grief, and it's all full of comb. So
when we get this all in, I have another board and the other one. I'll step inside and get another one.
Okay.
But when we get this all installed, how often should I come out here and check and do an inspection?
So as a new beekeeper, you want to plan an hour per colony per week. Okay. And the idea is to have some observation time as you're learning. The other thing I'd recommend is have a plan before you go into a hive. If you don't know why you're going into it, you might as well not go into it.
Right.
So there's a certain learning curve that you're going through when you get started in beekeeping, and sometimes their behavior will warrant an additional inspection, but in general, we want you in there about every 7 days.
Okay. Good.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
I'm going to put on the bottom of the of this video. I'm going to put a link to your bee rescue.
Okay.
And if I get any questions or comments, I'll forward them to you.
Sounds great.